Hey everyone, look what one of my friends found. They found an AHooOOGA horn from a Model A Ford. Pretty rusty. Will it ever run again is the question. Let's find out. Let's see if I can get this thing working again. It's froze up. It's really rusty here. It's going to take some effort, but let's see if we can get this apart and fixed up and working again. Well, the first thing I wanted to do was apply some penetrating oil into all these rusty screws. The armature is frozen, so let me get some of that on here to see if I can loosen up some of these screws. Okay, we're going to let that sit for several hours. I'll keep applying more and more lubricant to it and see what happens. Oh yeah, and I don't want to forget these little guys here. Okay, now with the penetrating oil on there for a while, we'll take off these screws that hold the horn to the main assembly here. Let's take those off. Actually, they're coming off pretty easy. Okay, let's see what's inside here, if I can break this apart here a little bit. There we go. All right, there's a gasket over here. And let me set this aside. But basically what happens on these AHooOOGA horns is basically this wheel spins, it has the notches on it, and it rubs against this diaphragm, or this little nub here, and vibrates and makes that sound. So basically it's just a motor driving this little guy against that little nub, creating the noise through that diaphragm. Okay, so that's that. Okay, next I'm going to take these two screws out of here and get that wrench in there. There we go. These two screws hold this whole assembly here. I just want to loosen them up a little bit, make sure they're accessible here, which they are. But the next thing I want to do is take this assembly off. So you want to take this off here. Okay, there's a lock washer on there. Okay, so next is to take this off. I find here is that it's a left-handed thread. Very interesting. So I'm going to have to keep this nut separate here so I can keep track of it and make sure I get it back on correctly. Oh, I see. So there's little notches in there that hold this on to this shaft. So now that I have that shaft open, I'm going to put some more lubricant in there to free it up. Okay, we'll let that stand for a while. Okay, my next step is to remove this entire assembly from this plate, but I can't do that because this is riveted in. So this is insulation here, and these are the two wire connections that go into the motor. So when you press the button, electricity flows from here through the coils and then back through here and back out to ground. So what I need to do now is desolder these wires here. That way I can remove that final nut here, and then this assembly comes off so I can get to the armature and loosen it up. Okay, I already unsoldered one wire already, but using my super turbo soldering iron, this is vintage, cranks out 325 watts. So I'll apply it here and see if we can get that other one out. Okay, there we go. Got it out. Okay, here's a better view. You can kind of see the two wires I've disconnected there. Of course, I'll clean up the solder when I reinstall it. But now I can remove this last nut over here to take that top assembly off. There we go. Make sure I get it in view. Lock washer off of there. Okay, so now let's see if I can get that off. Okay, with a few taps of the hammer on these little pins here, this whole assembly loosened up here. See if I can get it off. There we are. All right. I'll set that aside here. I want to look at that shaft here. Take a look here. That's in really good shape. Looks like that's well lubricated. The big challenge now is this shaft, the other end of that armature shaft is inside here. That's pretty rusty. So I got some work ahead of me here too. I can see where the laminated parts of the armature now are rusted to the plates of the electromagnets here. So let's see if I can free that up with more penetrating oil and get that loosened up. All right, with the penetrating oil inside on this shaft here, I've been able to wiggle this armature shaft back and forth. Got it much looser now. I'm able to rotate it, so that's some good news there. So let's see if I can slowly work its way out. There we go. Okay. Success. All right, so that's pretty good news there. So now let me clean this up a little bit and see what this shaft looks like here. It looks pretty rough. Looks pretty rough, but the good news is that it's, well, loose enough where I can go in there and get that straightened out. So let's see if I can clean up this whole thing here, get a better edge on it, and then take a look here inside here. So where this rides is inside on this arm here. So I need some more time to get that screw out, penetrating oil in there to work, and check out that area there. It's not a bushing at all. It's just basically just a guide hole. So let's see what I can do. Okay, here's the assembly. Basically what I wanted to show you was a couple of things. There's the spring that goes in there, of course, for some spring tension. I ended up breaking off the screw that goes like this right in here. So I wasn't too surprised that that would not come out. So the good news is that I have a whole box full of taps. So what I'll do is I'll drill that out, put some fresh threads in there, put a fresh screw in, and that'll be able to give it the proper tension. Also in here is the, what you see here is felt. So that's a lubricant soaked fabric that will help keep that shaft well maintained and lubricated. So I will clean all of this up, get it retapped, and start getting rid of some of the rust and clean it up a little bit, clean up the brushes, go from there. Okay, there we have it. Drilled, tapped, found a screw that will work for now. So we're all set there. Now on to cleaning everything up and going from there. Okay, next I'm going to clean this copper commutator. This is where the brushes ride along, and you can see it's all oxidized. So what we need is a nice clean copper finish here so the brushes can of course transfer the electricity from them through into the armature windings inside here. So I have some polish and I'll start cleaning that up. Okay, next I need to clean out this brush area here too. This is where these little brushes go, right here. These are little, looks like little copper brushes, little copper blocks, basically. And they fit in these little tubes, and they rub against the commutator of the armature. So I have to clean these out and make sure that they slide back and forth so they put a little bit of tension on the commutator. So what we're going to do is clean some of this rust out of here so they can slide smooth. Be like a dentist and remove plaque. There we go. So I can stick in one of these guys. It's very difficult, but we can do it. Just make sure I get the right size here. Side anyway. There we go. Yeah, it still sticks a little bit. I'm going to keep working it here. Let's see if you can see that. It works. There's some tension there. I'm going to clean that up a little bit more off camera and get that perfect. Same with the other side. I'll make sure that both of these cylinders here for the brushes, the brush holders are nice and smooth and can function properly. Next, I have to remove all of this rust from inside these little metal plates. These act like magnets. So let's get those cleaned up. Now let's see, got most of the rust off. Might do some more sanding here to make sure that the armature doesn't rub, but we'll do for now. Yeah, maybe a little bit more. And a nice clean up with a flathead Terry sock. It's an official flathead Terry sock. You too can own one of these. Now you can kind of see in the reflection a little bit. Pretty clean. Most of that rust is off of there, just so it doesn't rub on the armature. Here, let me grab the armature. Let's carefully put it inside there once. Give it a test fit. Put it back in there. Yeah, it should fit. Should be good. Yeah, I'll put the other bottom plate together, and there's plenty of room in here now. Before it was locked up tight, of course, you saw that earlier. Now she's got plenty of room to roam. So, on to the next. Okay, now we can start with some reassembly, but before we do that, we need to add a little bit of grease to this bushing here. If you're wondering where I got this, this is from Starbucks. It's a nice little plastic tab type deal. It's like a stir stick, but comes in really handy for these situations. So we're good there. Now we need to get the armature back in place. Play it carefully. Okay. The other thing you'll notice too on the top here, on top of the armature is a little, looks like a little ball bearing right about here. So that will ride on top against this little arm here. This goes over that. So what we're going to do is add some lubrication to the top of that. And now we need to put this back in. Oop, you know what I need to do first is put the brushes in. Aha. So let's get those in. Okay, I have both brushes in. Now we need to assemble it like this. Need about 4 hands to get this done here. There we go. Now get that in place. The other thing that has to happen is get these screws in as well. So let's see if I can get those in at the same time. So this has to happen. Okay, those are not fitting in there so good, are they? Well, let's try the other one here. See what the deal is here. Okay. That one was a little bit more cooperative. Get this other one in. Okay, so now what do I got to do? I got to push these brushes back carefully as the whole assembly pops back together here. Okay. It seems to rotate freely. This will come up a little bit further about here. Okay, so now let's get these nuts back on here and secure it. Okay, now that I have that nut tightened, I need to put on this gear. There's some teeth on it. The other thing you'll note too is the nut kind of goes upside down and is left-hand threads. Alright, now the spring steel spring, whatever you want to call it, rides on that. So, as usual, let's just put a little bit of lube on there, just a little bit. That's all it needs. Okay, now put this back on. Pretty tight deal there. Okay, now with all of that assembled, let's put on the top assembly. Let's spin it around this way actually. So this goes here, the screw goes through here, and then there's a little spring. So basically that spring will sit here in this little groove here. We put some more lubricant on this guy here. That's that little ball bearing on top of the armature. Get that on there. This has a little notch in it over here, so let's get that back in. Put that in here. So put the screw back in. A little bit of tension on there. So now let's take a look how it looks here. There we go. Spins freely. So basically what we have is you have this spring is pushing tension this way. Then you got this spring pushing tension that way. So this whole armature will float back and actually float or move back and forth between these springs as it rattles against that nub of the diaphragm. So before I get too far though, what I should do though is fire this thing up by applying 6 volts to these 2 wires and see if it even turns. Okay, moment of truth. I got it all back together. I've got my leads on here from the 6-volt battery over here. You can't see it, but anyway. So place your bets. Will it work? Let's try it out. It works. Look at that. I'm letting the brushes break in a little bit too. There's a copper brush that had some material on it and was deformed a little bit, so it's starting to smooth out. So I need some more work on that brush to reduce that little noise that I hear in there. But that's the good news, that at least it runs. So a few more adjustments and a little bit more repair will have this thing working perfect. Okay, now that I know that it works, I soldered the wires back on here. And now I got the other horn assembly here. Put this back together how it was before. Let me get it in the front of the camera here. Put this back like this so it's in its original location. There we are. Put that in here like that. It's kind of a snug fit. Okay, have it assembled. Now let's see what it sounds like. Okay, I made one more little adjustment on the screw up here. Let's see how it sounds. It still wants to jam a little bit. You can see that I'm applying power, and I have to help it along. So I need to make some adjustments here to the brushes up here. It seems to be just binding a little bit occasionally. So I got some work ahead of me to get that straightened out. But overall, success.